Welcome back to another tier list video. It's your host, Colt Williams. We're coming off a better than expected Bills-Dolphins game here on Thursday Night Football. Everyone expected that to be a complete blowout, and I understand. But that being said, those players will not be in this week's video, but videos will be uploaded much earlier, so do not worry about that in the future. Just had some things pop up. Today is my birthday, and so yeah, feel free to drop any birthday wishes you got down in the comments below. I appreciate each and every single one of them. Thanks for even clicking on the video. You know, as we get this thing started, get the channel growing, I appreciate each and every single one of you and all the comments that you've been putting down there. And if you haven't already, make sure you do go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I go live every single Sunday, 1 hour before kickoff. Just here to help you with all of your start-sit decisions. You're going to be tilting. Sometimes there's bad weather and you're like, oh, should I play this certain player? I'm here to help out with that. Let's go ahead and kick it off with my guy, CeeDee Lamb. He is coming in on number 1, plays Chicago. He's been awesome. We just saw what Amon-Ra did to the Bears defense. Now CeeDee Lamb gets a chance to do just that. Puka Nacua coming in at number 2 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Nobody can stop him. He's still searching for that first receiving touchdown. He had a rushing touchdown just last week, but Puka Nacua is in your lineups. And the aforementioned Amon-Ra St. Brown. Speaking of, highest over-under of the week, you're obviously starting him in every single one of your lineups. This is where it starts to get a little dicey. People are saying Joe Burrow's out. What do I do? Do I trade Chase? I've seen a lot of those comments people have asked me on X. I'm here to tell you Jake Browning played about 70% of that game in week 2. 16 targets, 14 for 165 and 1. I'd safe to say he's going to feed Chase still. That's kind of what we were hoping from J.J. McCarthy when he was not really feeding Justin Jefferson, but Chase is still getting that. Obviously, go ahead, just fire up Chase. You're not benching him in any situation. And then the wide receiver 1 so far in the season, Malik Neighbors coming in at number 5. The Giants are going to need to feed him if they're going to beat Kansas City. So yeah, Malik Neighbors, you're obviously still firing him up. And then coming in at number 6, JSN versus the Saints. Back-to-back 100-yard games to kick off the season. And expecting another big game here in week 3. And then starting off the A tier, Nico Collins. I mean, he travels to Jacksonville, probably sees some Travis Hunter, but that doesn't scare me off of him. We would just really like to see a lot more out of the Texans as a whole offense. I mean, just what we've seen so far is not what we really were banking on, drafting him in the first or early second round of fantasy drafts just weeks ago. And then number 8, Justin Jefferson gets Cincinnati. Is Carson Wentz an upgrade over J.J. McCarthy? Perhaps. There's a possibility where that happens. We really want him to feed the ball. If I was the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, I would be throwing Justin Jefferson the ball however many times I threw that ball that game. So going to number 9, Drake London at Carolina. The only scary part about London is that they need to feed him early, because this is a game where if the Falcons get up, and they are favored right now, they will run the ball. They'll run it successfully. They've done that with both Bijan and Tyler Algier. So yeah, we want to see Drake London get it early in that game. And then Rome Odunze, we're paying a little bit of respect to Rome because he's coming in at number 10, plays the Dallas Cowboys, 50-point over-under, 3 touchdowns through 2 games. You don't move away from Rome Odunze in week 3. That's kind of a no-brainer now at this point. And then Zay Flowers. Everybody wrote him off, myself included, in the sense of I didn't really see the upside. I didn't see the value. They're a low-passing offense. Well, through 2 weeks, 10 targets, and on averaging 10 targets in each one of these games. So another high-scoring game gets Detroit in week 3. Fire him up. I'm not really worried about that. And then some people are going to be a little worried here, and I'll give you a little bit of maybe a breather. But Garrett Wilson rounds out my top 12 wide receivers. Plays at Tampa. Tyrod Taylor isn't at quarterback. We've already got that news that Justin Fields will not be playing. But Wilson, he should see a ton of volume in the game. Vegas favors the Bucks. So yeah, the Jets should be playing behind in this one. And if you haven't already, as I mentioned, go ahead, subscribe to the channel. It's my birthday. Drop some birthday wishes down there. I go live every single Sunday. Ladd McConkey kicking off B tier. The biggest question mark in this game, the Chargers versus Denver Broncos, is which Chargers wide receiver gets Pat Surtain. Does he move around from each one? Do they audible once they get to the half of maybe Ladd's doing great and he was on Keenan to start? I personally think it's going to be on Keenan Allen. it could very well be Ladd. He's out there even more than Keenan, so just keep that in mind. He's going to be deployed on somebody, and that's always a possibility. Hasn't found the end zone just yet. We're hoping Ladd isn't anemic to it, but we'll see if he can get into the end zone in week 3. And then Davante Adams, speaking of getting in the end zone and having himself a 100-yard game, Davante Adams comes in at number 14. He plays the Philadelphia Eagles. This one here, a lot of points going to be scored. Davante Adams is still firing on all cylinders. I expect the Rams to design some plays to get Adams in the game plan, as well as Puka, but Puka's already obviously in all of lineups, and Adams in most situations, I would imagine, is too. Mike Evans, week 15, wide receiver 15 is what he's coming in here for me. 5 catches in both these games here. The targets have been there, even with Emeka Egbuka being the new hotness. And if you're rolling Evans out there, just hope that he finds the end zone for the first time in 2025. Egbuka is, well, we'll talk about Egbuka here just in a little bit. Deebo Samuel, let's go on to number 16 versus the Raiders. Marcus Mariota is officially starting Sunday. Got that news earlier this morning. Deebo's going to have design plays for him. We're talking about Adams having design plays. Deebo gets the short yardage stuff. He gets some use in the run game. So I expect Deebo to be just fine. I'm not really scared off of him because of Marcus Mariota. Obviously, it's a slight downgrade, but it's more of a downgrade for Scary Terry. And Brian Thomas, speaking about scaredy cats, Brian Thomas. I saw it all over X. Everybody was saying, he's looking like he's afraid to catch the ball. Then later comes out there's a wrist injury. So, yeah, this one here, not a great start from Brian Thomas. He plays Houston, so now he gets Derek Stingley, assuming he suits up because he's been limited in practice here this week. I personally don't have the stones to move away from Brian Thomas, but if you do, best of luck. Brian Thomas is the guy who, you just want to, I feel like you got to keep starting him until, Brian Thomas, if you have start sit questions there, I do not pity you. Best of luck with that one. Number 18, Tedero McMillan at Atlanta versus Atlanta. This is actually their home game here. So took 2 games, and Tedero McMillan already has a 100-yard game under his belt. He's favored. Vegas has the Falcons favored, rather, on the road. So I'd expect another heavy workload for Tedero McMillan. On to the C tier, kicking it off with A.J. Brown. Man, here's some disconnect between fantasy football and NFL football. So, Eagles are 2-0. A.J. Brown does not seem concerned at all about his usage because they're winning. And, it's basically the same as this next guy here. Marvin Harrison Jr., also 2-0. Kyler came out and said, well, we only have 1 ball. I can't spread it around. He might have 10 target games. He might have, 3 target games. And that's not what you want to hear. You thought there was going to be a little bit more of a consolidation in targets as far as Marvin Harrison Jr. goes, as far as Trey McBride, and those were the only 2. We got some Michael Wilson. We got some other targets in the passing game. Trey Benson, rather. Got a lot of work in the passing game here in just one of the first 2 games. But yeah, this one here, the Cardinals' run game hasn't been great. And this one, they might have to pass just a little bit more playing the 49ers, their stiffest competition so far. So we might see Marv's best game of the season here in week 3, but still in the C tier. C tier wouldn't be any better if it didn't have DK Metcalf in it. He has not looked great so far in these first 2 weeks. Found the end zone last week in his revenge game versus the Seahawks. Now he gets New England. Christian Gonzalez, one of the top cornerbacks in the league. He should suit up for the Pats. He was practicing somewhat in a limited capacity here in week 3, but yeah, this one here, if it gives you any consolation, if it's any consolation prize, I would say, the Patriots are a run-stuffing defense, so the Steelers may abandon the run and have to go to Metcalf a little bit more than expected. But the Steelers have also seen what Jaylen Warren can do on the ground. If you've seen his yards per carry, they are okay with just, barely winning games or barely losing games in that capacity. So that's worth being said. George Pickens comes in at number 22. He plays at Chicago. This is the 50-point over-under. You're starting all of your Cowboys. You're starting all of your Bears. So as much as you see on the screen, week 1 and week 2, that is the George Pickens experience. You're happy about 50% of the time. I mean, he can have big games. He can have games where he's non-existent. So, man, T. Higgins, he's been somebody who has been asked about a lot. He comes in at number 23. He plays at Minnesota. I really like Joe Burrow throwing the 50-50 balls to T. Higgins. I like it much less with Jake Browning there. However, I've seen a lot of people comparing the splits between Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jake Browning and T. Higgins, and that was 2 years ago. That was in 2023. Like, it is useful data, but it wasn't that much of a... I'm not totally sold that that's going to translate here in week 3 of the 2025 season. So I'm waiting before I adjust any of my priors on any previous data like that. Terry McLaurin, man, slow start. Jaden Daniels is out. We've already talked about that. I talked about Debo being a little bit of the better fantasy option as far as wide receivers go for the Commanders. Plays the Raiders. That's not really my concern. It's more of I'm okay with buying Terry McLaurin if it's a 0-3 team, because I'm not expecting a big game here. Marcus Mariota is going to be doing more checkdowns, more design runs. They have Marcus Mariota there because he's similar to Jaden Daniels in the sense that he has the mobility. Not Jaden Daniels' mobility, but he has mobility in the pocket, and so I'm expecting a lot of checkdowns. They're moving the offensive line around in a lot of ways, so the Commanders are a bit of a wild card here going into week 3 and how they are planning on using everybody. And then we're talking about the new hotness, Emeka Egbuka versus the Jets. He didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday, and he was limited on Friday. So if he starts, I'm fine firing him up. But do keep in mind that the touchdowns have been keeping him relevant so far in the season. You can see just 4 receptions in both games, 4 for 29 and a touchdown. Like, the touchdown part's nice, but he's not going to get a touchdown each and every single week. He's uber talented, no doubt. But do keep that in mind when you are making your decisions. And then Jacoby Myers, you could agree that you could argue that he could be at the top of the C tier here, and I would be completely fine with that. Over 10 targets in both these past 2 games. And he's making plays on the field, so he just needs to find the end zone. But yeah, if you wanted to put him over A.J. Brown, I would be okay with that. I understand the ceiling of A.J. Brown, but yeah, it's Jacoby Myers is just one of those kind of safer options. If you need more of a lottery ticket and you are maybe down after Thursday Night Football, maybe a Marv or a A.J. Brown can get you there, or a Pickens, So yeah, Myers is certainly a safe option. And then on to D tier. Let's go number 27, Jameson Williams. We're talking about lottery scratchers and somebody who can have a big game. Just look at that week 2. 2 catches, 108 yards, and a touchdown. Very inconsistent, but always a wild card to have a monster game. It doesn't bring me any joy having him all the way down here. You have to rank players in certain areas. But much like George Pickens, I mean, he could have a big boom game. But highs over under the week, James Williams is probably in most lineups, despite him being in my D tier. Keenan Allen, I talked about him just a little bit when I talked about Ladd. I think he gets Pat Surtain. He's a safer floor, but maybe a lower ceiling style of player. And then Ricky Pearsall versus Arizona. This one here, I thought that Pearsall was going to be Mac Jones' favorite target. He's making the most of his catches, but we'd love to see more, certainly. Number 30, going to Cortland Sutton versus the Chargers. He's the clear wide receiver 2 for Denver. I'm just kidding. He's not the wide receiver 2 for Denver, but he is the number 1 for Denver, just not in week 2. It was all Troy Franklin, and that's concerning because Sutton's greatest strength was that he was the only reliable target for the Broncos. 50 yards, 53 yards in both his matchups against the Chargers last season, but yeah, he's closer to a flex range than what I thought was going to be a pretty reliable wide receiver 2 on the season. So yeah, keep that in mind. DJ Moore, I've already said it. Fire up your Bears. Fire up your Cowboys. But he is clearly number 2 behind Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze is at my number 10 spot. DJ Moore here. I'm okay. He will have big games this season. He won't be what you're seeing in weeks 1 and 2. It could come in week 3. So another player who could have a very much big boom game. And then a lot of targets. Mr. Target Man here. 32. Chris Olave versus the Seahawks, traveling to Seattle for that one. Would love to see a touchdown. 54 yards in both of these games here so far. But that's kind of what you're going to get. You're going to need a lot of targets, not a lot of yards with Spencer Rattler. That's kind of what we've seen so far. And then the Seahawks, it's worth mentioning, just 2 weeks, but they're number 1 against wide receivers so far on this short season. And number 33, Michael Pittman, travels to Tennessee. He got the Pat Surtain treatment, as I was talking about, in week 2. I'm expecting somewhere in the middle of good, not great. Week 1, he was great. Week 2, he was bad. I'm expecting somewhere right in the middle of there. What I would be looking at most in this one, it's the Colts' first road game. So I'm looking at Daniel Jones and seeing kind of if he's the real deal more than anything. And then Juwan Jennings versus the Cardinals. He's coming in at number 34 for me. Mac Jones' favorite target in week 2. Does that continue? Possibly. I think with these 49ers wide receivers, it's a coin flip. I personally, obviously, have Ricky Pearsall ahead of him. But if you wanted to have Jennings ahead of him, I'm perfectly fine with that as well. And then on to the E tier. Hollywood Brown went from 16 targets down to 5. He's playing the Giants. He's a threat for a deep catch. Like, I'm not signing off on him unless you're a wild underdog. And then, even then, this seems like a Chiefs get-right game. They're not. I can't see a world where they go 0-3 on the season. So, yeah, Hollywood Brown is a chance for a big play, but that's about where I've got him. And another big play guy who, well, he hasn't shown it so far on the season. Week 1, he was very, very close. But, yeah, Brian Thomas was, limited with a wrist injury. I already discussed that. They're playing Houston here this week. If Brian Thomas plays, he'll get Derek Stingley. If not, Travis Hunter. That's not great. I don't think many people are starting Travis Hunter. I mean, you drafted him. Depending on where you drafted him where you probably had to start him, but I think there have been other waiver wire options that you've been able to pick up and kind of audible from, or later round players like a Jacoby Myers, a Juwan Jennings, Michael Pittman, players we've already talked about where you could be starting them over Travis Hunter until we see some kinds of life. Speaking of signs of life, no signs of life of the Eagles passing game. Again, they're 2-0 and they're fully committed on running the ball, and they're perfectly fine with that. Whatever wins games is the Eagles' motto. Number 37, Devonta Smith versus the Rams. I'm not excited to start him in most leagues. So if you can bench him. I understand if you can't. And then Calvin Ridley had a game last season versus the Colts. Granted, it was with Will Levis, but it was 8 targets, 0 receptions. It was a goose egg. He's still Cam Ward's number 1 target, and I'm expecting Cam Ward to have his best game so far. But that being said, even if Ward has his best game, it could be average at best. So keep that in mind. Wan'Dale Robinson, he's a target hog there for the Giants. He gets to play Kansas City. It's Neighbors at 1, Robinson at 2, and then a very, very, very far gap to number 3 in targets on this team. Russ is not going to throw it 450 yards each and every single week. It's encouraging to see that Wan'Dale's getting deeper targets because we didn't really see much past about the 5-yard line or line of scrimmage last season. So it is encouraging to see that he's getting used down the field. And then number 40, Jerry Jeudy versus the Packers. This is a tough matchup. It's a really strong defense. What we liked about Flacco is he's throwing it 45 times a game. What we don't like about Flacco right now is he's spreading the ball all around. So it's making it very difficult for other people to just have a consolidation of targets. It's Jerry Jeudy, it's Harold Fannin, it's David Njoku, it's Cedric Tillman. Everybody's getting used in that. Dylan Sampson even now. So yeah, those 45 targets are getting kind of divvied up amongst a lot of players. So I understand if you want to move away from Jerry Jeudy without an injury to somebody there or maybe a quarterback change, it might be more of the same. And then Stephon Diggs, I have him here at number 41. He plays Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh through 2 weeks have been more of a run funnel, so keep that in mind when you're starting Patriots pass catchers. It's not a great look. And then Quentin Johnston, number 42. He plays Denver. He caught lightning in a bottle the first 2 weeks. He got touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. If he didn't catch that 60-yard touchdown in week 2, you'd be looking at Johnston in a very different light. It'd be 2 receptions for 11 yards. So just keep that in mind. I want to see just a little bit more out of Johnston. I mean, just kind of inconsistent. 70 yards and a touchdown every single week is awesome. It's season 3 for Johnston, and that's when we see players break out. It could be a breakout on the run, but I'm not sold just yet. On to F tier, just kind of blitz through these guys. Troy Franklin, a lot of people picked him up on the waiver wire. I'm taking the wait and see approach from a lot of these guys. Matthew Golden as well. Kayshon Boutte. Matthew Golden should see an increase in snaps with Jaden Reed out. Kayshon Boutte, it's not a great matchup, and he only had 1 target just last week, so that's a little bit of a scary one. Eli Kyle Manor, again, a lot of guys that are on the rise are, you could see a path where they could get some targets, but it's just these are bench players at best for right now. But yeah, that rounds out the top 50 wide receivers. And if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button. I do go live every single Sunday, 1 hour before kickoff, to help you with your start-sit questions. With that being said, I will see you Sunday for the Sunday live episode. And if for whatever reason you can't make that, I totally understand. I will see you on Monday with the waiver wire episode, though. So I'll see you then.